the Constitutional Court is set to resume day 2 of its hearings into the high-profile Rand manipulation case. The Competition Commission is appealing a 2024 ruling that cleared most of the banks accused of currency manipulation. These are live visuals from inside the Constitutional Court, with proceedings for the day yet to kick off. It's in some instances really considered a battle of the titans, really senior advocates, I should say, who are involved in the litigation. Yesterday, we heard from Ngcobo, who speaks to the Competition Commission, and we'll get you a sense of what's likely to unfold today. Watching the story for us is SABC News economics reporter Naledi Ngcobo, who joins us now live in our studios. Great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for popping by.
Thank you so much for having me.
It can be very complex, this case, and I think the ordinary South African is still kind of trying to place what's at stake, what it really means for us. Day 1 has now come and gone. What was the main focus, would you say, of Ngcobo's submissions?
So essentially what the legal team representing the Competition Commission is asking the ConCourt to do is essentially overturn the decision or the verdict it took that some of these banks which were implicated don't necessarily have to be joined with the ones from South Africa due to jurisdictional issues. So basically what these banks were arguing and what they managed to convince the Competition Appeals Court at the time is the fact that they shouldn't be part of this court case because they essentially don't comply or need to comply with South African Competition Act as domestic banks would need to do. And so their argument certainly was that they would not be joined in this application or this case. And what we're hearing now from the legal team from the Competition Commission is that they're asking for that decision to be overturned and for these 17 banks, international banks that were excluded initially, to now be joined and to also face the music. We do understand, of course, that there have been some banks that have conceded to wrongdoing in this regard. Of course, I think it was the Citibank at the time, Standard Chartered. They also, ended up paying a number of fines. So there was a fine, I think, of about 42 billion that was assigned to Standard Chartered, and around 69 billion that Citibank had to pay. So essentially, it did take place. I don't think the argument at this point is whether or not there was this misconduct, because, I mean, if others are admitting to it, then, it should say that it did take place. So what the Competition Commission right now is saying that it's illogical and it's irrational to find fault with other banks and not find fault with those who also were implicated merely because of jurisdictional issues, especially considering the fact that market activity does not stay within the borders of the affected country. Because we're in an open market, we would be affected. Whatever happens with currencies would affect our exchange rate, would affect our exports and import markets as well. So the impact is there.
It's fascinating, I think, the legal questions that are raised in this case, because like you mentioned, these banks operate across borders, right? And I don't know if the court has ever had to kind of deal with questions like that before, around what happens if a bank sitting, I don't know, in London is interacting with a bank in Sandton and there's criminal activity between the two. I mean, it would be, I suppose, a bit strange to try the one without the other. But let's take a few steps back. When we speak about Rand manipulation, what does that mean? Help us break that down for people who, I suppose, don't interact with these concepts on a daily basis.
So essentially what the claim has been is that those that were trading on financial markets and currencies, Forex essentially at the time, were basically colluding to depreciate the value of the currency, so the rand to dollar exchange rate in this regard. And of course, this is to say that this serves their own clientele or their own means. And what we understand is that the banks that did participate in this collusive behavior managed to make money from that. They were able to manipulate and, lower the price or the value at which the rand is sitting at in such a way that it benefits them. We understand that some of these banks were able to make around R1 trillion per day just based off this collusive behavior. So basically, working with other traders to say, I will take a step back when you start betting on the rand or betting on a particular currency, and this is not something you're supposed to do. We all need to just trade and use our own initiative, but it shouldn't be based on the basis of, collusive behavior. And that's essentially what the issue is, and that has had an impact on the value of the South African currency to such an extent that the Commission in this regard is arguing that this did not only impact financial markets, in that investors are now concerned about investing in the South African rand because the uncertainty then becomes an issue. As we've spoken many times, that investors want confidence.
Right.
And if there's no confidence and there seems to be fluctuations and misrepresentations, then it does affect our investment opportunities. And what we also understand is that, there's an impact on inflation as well. If exporters, for instance, are finding that they're having to, pay a lot more for the products that they are bringing into the country, that brings in inflation. We're importing or exporting inflation, and that affects, consumers in real time. So the value of the currency in the consumer's pocket is essentially depreciated. It means that people cannot spend the way that they need to spend, or they're finding it difficult to afford basic goods. So certainly an impact on the South African economy as well as the South African consumer. I think also in terms of government spending as well, the value of the bonds that we have, or the value of the debt that we have as a country also, becomes difficult for us to maintain. You've heard that the interest that we're paying on the debt that we have is quite high at this point, and this doesn't help. It means that the government now needs to pay a lot more in terms of servicing our debt. Fascinating.
I know you're not a lawyer, but I have to squeeze this question in very quickly. How easy is it to prove that people are colluding versus them just trading? I mean, I can imagine a scenario where they say, look, it just so happened this was a coincidence, that this person was bidding for the rand and we had pulled back. I'm struggling to kind of pinpoint at which stage, because also the standard in court is not just optics. You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this was actually happening, and I wonder how possible that is.
I think what has been proved so far is that the traders were seen to be colluding with each other.
Okay.
They were seen to be making their pricing on specific currencies based on the information that they would get with their colleagues or other traders.
Communication.
So there is a communication that has been tracked. We understand that there were chat rooms where conversations were taking place, and the Commission says they have access to these chat rooms where traders were actually communicating to manipulate the rand. So it's something that has been proved, and I think the fact that we've seen some banks conceding to this misconduct says a lot in this regard.
All right, thanks very much indeed. For the first time, I think I actually understand what's taking place here, so I appreciate that. That, of course, is Naledi Ngcobo, our economics reporter, who's going to be watching day 2 of this high-stakes rand manipulation case.